everybody.
Hey.
How's it going, Ben?
Oh, pretty bad.
Yeah, you sound a little stuffy, my man. You okay?
Yeah, I've had a sickness come over me in the past week, but hopefully I don't sound too nasally.
Well, either way, Ben, we're happy to have you. Nasal, no nasal. You're a very valued member of this duo, and welcome to a little bit of a sickly episode of the Pluggin podcast today. Like I said before, I'm Mr. Brian Sansone. This is my good friend, Mr. Ben Farrell. We might be feeling a little bit under the weather this week, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop for a second bringing you the best conversation. So, Ben, as we do every episode, let's kick it off by looking into the past. And what do we have this week?
We got something great. It's called We Love Katamari. Ooh. Part of my favorite series. Not my favorite series. One of my favorite series. Katamari Damacy. And this is the Japan release, of course, on the PS2.
And this is the second one, right?
I should have looked that up, but it's a sequel.
Yeah.
It's one of the good sequels before it became, like, ubiquitous.
Before they just, like, did the same thing over and over again, which was eventually kind of the downfall of the Katamari Damacy series, is that there was only so much room for innovation with that amazing concept in the first game. I think I don't know what title I heard before when we were talking about this pre-show. I definitely played We Love Katamari, though, so that's good.
Yeah, so this was the July 6th release, 2005, yes. Came out in Japan, as I said. And they have the concept. It's a good gameplay concept, and they just put it on every system as many times as they possibly could.
But that's kind of looking past this game. This game in and of itself, I remember, was actually super highly anticipated because the first game was kind of a runaway success. Even here in America, the game was super popular because it was just so weird and off the wall. And
I actually played this one more than the original. I watched my brother play the original a lot. Mm-hmm. Before I really got into gaming myself. I would just watch my brothers play video games, and that was my thing. But the original, I would spend hours just in awe of my brother and his friends. My favorite thing was the being able to eventually just roll up the entire Earth and islands, and it kind of almost reminiscent makes me think of the Everything that we played. Remember that game?
Everything. I remember. I think we even said that on air. That I remember exclaiming, "This looks like this is freaking Katamari Damacy with animals or something like that." Because it is a very similar concept, and it's interesting how an art game like Everything kind of takes that idea and takes it in a new direction, but it has a very similar art style and kind of presentation when you're
similar art style. And yeah, I'm thinking of the specific example of the islands in the water.
Oh yeah.
And just whenever I get to that level, it's in this one too. We Love Katamari. Mm-hmm. Just there's two main modes that I like the best, and one of them is you're timed, so you can get as big as you can within 20 minutes, whatever it is. And one of them is I forget the reverse mode, where it's it's restricted but you have unlimited time, and one of them's unrestricted but you are timed. So I would take the one where you're timed and you can just get as big as you can.
You could literally get to be the size of land masses, and
so you get to planets and stars, yeah. And you.
Oh, it goes that far.
You're rolling up everything. It's great.
Oh wow! So it literally is everything in that way, except with a little bit less of the existentialist, philosophical bent to it.
But there is some of that too. You got the King of the Cosmos, the Prince.
That's true.
It's a cute little. It's definitely Japanese. It's got that going on, and. It's all about the style. The music is great. The theme song is great. And it's got that infectious feel to it. And I really love, every single item that you pick up or roll up, even, humans, animals, any island, planet, or structure, building. It's all logged in your, I want to say inventory, but it's more of, a compendium where it just says every single thing you've ever rolled up in your balls. I'm assuming anyone listening has played a Katamari game. It's, I guess to explain it, you have the Katamari as this little ball that looks like a piece of candy, I guess, and you're this microscopic little dude called the Prince, and the control scheme is you're moving both sticks on a PS2 controller. So it was also early PlayStation. They were looking for ways, I guess, to implement the dual stick style, kind of like Ape Escape did that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because that first game dropped in 2005, and it's weird to look back and think how much, like, even in that whole generation of consoles, like, specifically Japanese developers on PS2, like, really found a lot of interesting ways, and kind of to a certain degree, because I feel like there was a certain amount of, they didn't know what to do with that second analog stick. There were some really interesting ways that they came up with using that second analog stick, though, as a result of that. And, I mean, I think Damacy is maybe one of the best, if not the single best examples of that. Also, a really cool thing, too, about We Heart Katamari, the thing I always think about, and even though I know it's a little bit of a, maybe not the most fondly remembered thing, like, the one really cool innovation it brought was that co-op mode. Remember, like, one of you would turn and one of you would go forward?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was introduced in this game. It was like a co-op mode.
Interesting. Oh, yeah. Co-op mode's where you're, like, both playing a single-player thing.
Yes, you're both playing as... You're both rolling up one ball together.
And it's been on, like, Xbox and, like we said, been on everything. Used to play it on my Verizon, like, flip phone before I got a smartphone. It actually works surprisingly well as far as I remember. And... But yeah, it feels the best with the PlayStation controller because the sticks are right next to each other. It's built for that, and like the moves, like where you do like the opposite up and down really fast, like when you push the left stick up and the right stick down at the same time, and then you reverse it really fast, and that does like a speed boost, and clicking them in at the same time does like a quick turnaround, and it's just like all these cool little mechanics implemented into just using the DualShock controller, and I thought that was always cool. And I was saying earlier, the art style is great. Like everything you pick up has its own personality. Like I always just love when you end up rolling up the humans and they start screaming and like all the animals make a certain sound. Yeah, it's like in video games, progression is a big thing. I really like the feeling of progression and growing, and this is almost like a diluted version of that. When you get to a certain point and you're like, you don't even realize you're controlling a guy anymore. It's just like a speck.
You literally can't even see him. He's just like a tiny little thing on like the bottom.
That's why they
also
they show it in the corner too. They give you like a little closed circuit view of him.
That's right, they do. Yeah. Do you have any of those games? I would actually love to.
I have this game. Yeah.
We should play through this a bit at some point, either after we finish up tonight or in a future section. I love the Katamari games. Particularly, I played this one and 2. So this one and the first one a lot. What was the beautiful Katamari? That was the Xbox 360 one, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was when it became multi-platform.
Yeah. Well, I think that one was like an Xbox exclusive, but then they did another one a year later for the PlayStation 3 that was basically like a reskin. It got weird too with that because like Microsoft was like, do an exclusive one for us because PlayStation 3 isn't out yet. And then Sony was like, do one for us now too. Like, or like the Verizon flip phone one. Like, it was a weird series to think about, but it got very franchised very fast. When did that come out? 06?
And I'm not sure.
Does it say at the back of the box? I think it was 2006, right?
Well, we know it's 2005 in Japan, so
2005
probably
in Japan.
had to get localized, so you're probably right. But I just brought the game off my shelf to double check the developer, which is Namco, good old classic Namco.
That's right.
And
pre-Namco Bandai too. It's very very rare to find these days.
And yeah, this game just brimming with personality. I always love Japanese games more than Western games, and not to make a generalization, like I love many American-made games, and I wouldn't exclude a game because of where it was made, but I just tend to lean towards these quirky Japanese style.
I mean, that's definitely where you have, you definitely appreciate those things, and that's been cool for me because I was a little bit more of a Western. I came from the Western side coming up, and through our friendship, you've actually showed me a lot of games. Katamari, I think, is a weird example of something that kind of crossed over. And it's weird to think about it now because, like, I don't think in this past generation it would have caught on the way it did, you know? But, like, I think it also says a lot about how at that time during the PlayStation 2 Xbox era, like, Japan dominated that era. And, like, it's weird to think about now because we're coming off a generation or arguably 2 generations where Western developers were kind of more at the forefront. Although some would argue now that we've been over the last year or two kind of seeing Japan come back up with Zelda, the Final Fantasy 15, even how they repaired Final Fantasy 14 and turned it into a super popular game back in 2013, 2014, I believe. Like, there's been a lot of talk about like the Japanese resurgence during this generation, but something like Katamari is such a testament to how during the PlayStation 2 era, something Japanese could just catch on in mainstream gaming. It's just a beautiful and unique series, and I'm happy we're taking a chance to like sit and talk about it, because I don't think it's really something we've ever discussed besides for that errant call out during the Everything Let's Play, you know?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it. Now I'm glad we have.
I'm glad we have too.
And I actually, when we picked it, I wasn't sure we had much to talk about it, but it just started to come out of me. I didn't realize I had so many memories with the series.
I mean, me either. I wasn't even really 100% sure if I'd played this one or the last one, but I'm remembering a lot of fond memories, particularly, like I said, for me, it's more the co-op mode, which it was kind of frustrating. It kind of sits in that same category that, like, the Portal 2 does, where, like, you have to be very coordinated with the person, but it's very satisfying if you can get a good partner and really work on it. That'd be a fun thing to try together. I think we should definitely try our hand at that one of these days. You got anything else to say about our good friend Katamari Damacy, though, Ben?
I'm just thinking about the phone version I played. It was like, I don't know if you know the NV that came out, the Verizon NV.
I remember the
NV2. Was that what it was called?
Yes.
The second series.
Was that the one? It had like the little screen, and then you flipped it up.
You flipped it up. It looked like a tiny little brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had the keyboard inside, the full keyboard.
It didn't even have a full screen. It just had like a little slit, right? And then you had to open it up.
Yeah, it had a slit on the front, and then you'd open it for the full screen. I had Katamari on that, and then I think I got some good hours off of that. Like, that was... I wasn't really carrying many like Game Boys around at that time, early high school. It was a good little gem to have in my pocket.
Now you just remember that whole generation of phones that's just like gone now, like the NVs, but also like I remember I had one. It was like a slide up one with like the keyboard and all that. Like,
and there's some weird like obscure games like offshoots of series. There's Assassin's Creed. There's like Prince of Persia.
I owned the Assassin's Creed game.
And it was before it was all like mobile smartphones, like offshoot stuff with like what are they called, where you just like the tapping games, like what's that game called? Investment banker, whatever.
Oh, the
capitalist.
One. Oh, venture capitalist.
Venture capitalist.
The one that me and Dan played.
Like, what's that genre called?
I don't even know what the name of it is, but like the counter games or whatever, like the games that's all about like
tap and fap.
Because like you can just play them while you that's.
But I'm saying before that though, there were these other offshoots where they actually tried to make a game on these flip phone hardwares, and I'm sure a lot of those got lost in the ether. It's kind of interesting. No,
they definitely do. I mean, I'm even remembering there was a God of War game. I might have just said that 30 seconds ago. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot of stuff like that like you said, is completely just. It's dust in the wind. It's gone.
And there's definitely a lot of communities online that specialize in saving software like that and making sure stuff doesn't get lost to history. But I'm not quite sure about phone games like that.
I don't think who's sitting there saving the Katamari Verizon game or like God of War Betrayal. That was.
I don't even know if I still have that phone. Like if I find that phone, it's on it.
I found one of my old. All of them were on my Virgin mobile phone because I had prepaid, so I didn't have to ask my mom and dad for their credit card. I would just like use some of my minutes to buy a video game.
Nice.
But then it would fuck me over because then I wouldn't have minutes. But I was also like 13 and no one was texting me anyway.
Yeah. I don't need to call anyone.
I could just play a game. When I got the T-Mobile phone, which was the flip out keyboard one or the slide out keyboard one, I didn't do that quite as much because I was 16. I had serious things to do like text girls. I was a very serious guy back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I also got my iPod Touch around that time too, and then that like destroyed it. Like once the iPhone and the iPod Touch hit, it was like over for that entire era. And well, we talked about that
in terms of gaming or texting girls.
Well, both.
Oh, okay.
Texting girls. Well, I'd still texted girls on it just because I had it for another year or two. I got my iPhone fairly late. I got it when I was.
Even today, if you could lock down an iPod Touch with Wi-Fi, you don't even need a plan.
Damn
you
right.
Could download Facebook.
Text the girls from there.
Boom.
Anyway, young gentlemen listening to this, heed our words.
We love Katamari.
We love Katamari. text scrolls from your iPod Touch. Anyway, moving on to other subjects. Ben, I would ask it to you, but you're going to go second. So, what have I been playing this week?
Oh, sorry. Let me ask you. Brian?
Yes?
Sansone. What have you been playing?
I'm going to be a little bit boring. I
Don't be boring.
Not even boring. I just feel like the last 5 weeks I've just been talking about Bloodborne and Wolfenstein or Bloodborne and Zelda.
Well, last week you gave a pretty good Wolfenstein update.
You're right.
Focus on Bloodborne, I guess.
You're right. Your brother, right, was saying that I sold him on Wolfenstein or something like that, right?
Yeah, you got him excited about it. He was saying, yeah.
It's a fun game. You should definitely check it out. Anyway, it has been a while. I've just kind of been I'm playing through Bloodborne. I haven't really given an update in a bit, so getting into it, I finally got back to the grind a bit. I beat that boss that was giving me trouble way back in the second or third episode of this podcast a couple weeks ago. I think during one of our E3 segments when we had Aaron, who was the kid who got me into the Souls series and it's his copy of Bloodborne I'm playing. I kind of talked about that on air a little bit.
Does he still bother you about it, or is it basically yours?
I mean, he doesn't. The funny thing is, I bother myself more than he bothers me about it.
I wouldn't worry about it, man. You own that copy.
I just feel bad because part of it too is it's just when you have someone's game. And
I don't borrow or lend games.
You don't borrow or lend games from anyone ever.
It gets too messy for me.
Honestly, I can understand that because I have that situation. Because I give as much as I take. Because Dan Roach has my copy of Blade Runner. He's had it for 3 months. He had my copy of Uncharted 2, I think, for about a year. But I've had his copy of Red Faction Guerrilla for a year. But then I bought his copy. Did I buy his copy of Red Faction off of him? I'm not 100% sure. Or did I? Or
you're asking nobody here. No one knows but you.
I'm asking rhetorically to myself out loud. Maybe some of the viewers know. Who knows? Maybe they can read my mind. But get to the Psychonaut. Just jump in and get to the bottom of it. But getting back on subject, I don't know. I just feel like when I have someone's game, and there's a bunch of stuff that I also want to play. Again, I've been playing through Wolfenstein, doing this. I've been getting sidetracked by a bunch of other games, and I feel kind of bad about that. And then I also have The Witcher 3, which I want to jump into before the end of this year. So
you know what? I mean,
and then also Metroid.
It's a gamer problem. Not even
it's an embarrassment of riches.
People who are prone to reading books, I'm sure, have similar problems. I feel like movies are easier to digest, but you just amass all these things that take so many hours and you can't get to them all. So my advice would be to not worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have that problem with other things too. With books, I do have that issue too. I don't read books as much as I play games. Movies, you're right, they're a little bit more digestible, but I still have one or two that I've watched half of and I need to go back and watch the entire thing. It's more, TV shows. That's always it for me. It's more TV shows than movies. TV shows and games really always get me. But
well,
yeah.
Give us a little more lowdown on Bloodborne.
All right, yeah, getting on the point to Bloodborne. I got hooked into it a bit again too. I definitely think it's gonna.
Now, just remind me again. Bloodborne is what system?
It's PlayStation 4. It's
PlayStation 4.
So it's a Souls game.
Straight up Bloodborne or Bloodborne.
It's just Bloodborne. There is a DLC pack called The Old Hunters. I haven't even jumped into that. I think what I'm I might wait and buy at discount the Game of the Year edition that has the base game.
But it's related to Dark Souls, right?
Dark Souls is a spiritual successor to Dark Souls in the same way. The Soul series is a little bit confusing and weird. Have I ever really explained the whole thing to you?
No.
Okay, so the original game was called Demon Souls. That came out on PlayStation 3 back in 2009. It was published by Sony Japan, Sony Computer Entertainment Japan, and Sony's Japan studio, which is their development studio. They helped do Shadow Colossus, and they're doing the remake of Shadow Colossus right now too, actually. And they always worked with Team Ico, and they're pretty much any game that comes from the Sony Japanese studio is from them. Any Japanese Sony game is developed by them. They helped develop the first Souls game. So it didn't sell that well in Japan, which has always been kind of a weird thing about the Souls series, is that it's a Japanese game that isn't really that popular in Japan. So Sony didn't want to release it in America. So I think Atlas, which always does this, whenever someone doesn't want to develop a game like them or D3 Publisher picks it up. They picked up Demon's Souls and it became a giant hit in America. And From Software and Miyazaki, who is the director of the game, wanted to keep going. Sony wasn't really interested in doing a sequel to Demon's Souls, though, so they partnered up with Namco Bandai, same guys who did We Love Katamari and the Katamari Damacy series, actually, funny enough. And they made a spiritual successor called Dark Souls. That's the main series that everyone knows. So they're not technically related.
So Demon's Souls was one game.
Yes, and then Dark Souls was another game.
That became Dark Souls.
Yes.
Spiritually.
Dark Souls is more or less Demon's Souls 2. They just couldn't call it that. So it was a brand new world, brand new characters, no assets shared, but like the gameplay is exactly the same, more or less.
And then how does Bloodborne come into that?
Bloodborne is Sony coming back into the picture. So basically, the first Dark Souls was a runaway success. Demon's Souls was a runaway success. And then Dark Souls 2 came out. And Dark Souls 2 was actually not directed by Miyazaki-san. It was directed by two of his apprentices who took a lead role. And people were kind of wondering why. Basically, some point after the original Dark Souls release, Sony was like, oh, we made a huge mistake. We made a giant mistake by not releasing this game in America. We're missing out on money. So they basically came to Miyazaki. They're like, we're sorry. And they were like, we're going to give you money and you can work with Studio Japan and make a new game. And instead of doing Demon's Souls 2 and having two concurrent series, because, I mean, he basically already went down that path, Bloodborne is him doing something totally new and different. So it's like got the Victorian setting and all that stuff. Like, I think you've seen gameplay, I'm sure, at some point. Yeah.
So it's like the Mighty Number 9 of Mega Man.
Except
not
fantastic.
Horrible.
Except possibly the best in the entire series. I love it. And structurally it's a little bit different. I don't know how much I went into this last time we talked about it. It was so long ago.
Just bring us home on your experience.
Right. The cool thing I like about it is just, and especially jumping back into the game, this kind of applies. It has an interesting structure where it's semi-open world. Like, it's kind of almost like a Metroidvania in that sense that everything connects.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because those games don't feel open to me. Like, there's a lot of hallways and corridors and things that are connected, but it's not open. Like, when I think open, I think, like, vast, like Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Not to say it, but...
And in that sense, you were right. I mean,
it's open as in free, not as in open physically.
Exactly. This game is a little bit of a different story, though. It's not quite like Breath of the Wild, but it's also not like what we're going through right now playing Metroid Prime. Like, and again, we'll get into this later when we talk about Game Club, but in that game, you specifically need a certain thing, and you just cannot access that area until you do. In this game, you're gated by certain progress bars, like you have to beat a boss and get an item from them to go to a certain area, but within that area, there's a bunch of branching paths, and those paths might be linear, but they have certain areas you can go and do different things, and you can do different areas in certain orders, up to a point, you know? And I kind of like that structure, but there's also a hub world, so at any point from a checkpoint, which they're called lanterns, you have to go back to this hub area called the Hunter's Dream. This is kind of annoying, though, because if you want to fast travel around, you literally have to go to a lantern, travel back to the hub, and then from there go to like a new area. You can't just travel from like lantern to lantern. It's not like, you know how like in Zelda with the shrines, you can just go from like shrine to shrine or tower to tower pretty much? Like you don't have to go back to you don't have to go back to the Great Plateau anytime you want to go somewhere else.
Oh, I see.
Think about if you had to do that. That's basically how it works in Bloodborne. But again, it works for that game structure because it is an action RPG. Like, so there's this doll there. It's literally a human. It's a living doll brought to life. In the game's lore, it kind of makes sense. That levels you up. There's like a shop you can buy things from. Think about if Beetle was only in one place, and like anytime there was only one Goddess Hill shrine in the entire game.
Yeah, just to say, like, if you ever want me to understand something, just related to Breath of the Wild or Zelda.
That if there's anything I've learned in the 4 months we've been doing this podcast, it's anytime I want to explain a concept to Ben, just
not even just a video game concept.
Anything,
any concept ever.
That's right.
If you can relate it to Zelda.
That's right. I was explaining taxes to Ben just the other month using Breath of the Wild. That was a great time.
True. Yeah, you got the.
I want to see where you take this bit. I was like, where's he going to take this bit? Is he going to run with it? Ben knows taxes probably better than I do, for the record. I don't want to slander his good name in taxes.
Korok tax.
Could you imagine it took away some of your Korok seeds? There was like a tax once a year.
Well, to get the inventory.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
You got to pay the Korok tax.
You're right. That is a tax. Okay, so.
Such derailment.
Either way, I mean, like, it still counts towards your total, right? Like, even if you use them, right?
Yes.
Okay. This got totally derailed, but what I'm really appreciating back into Bloodborne, just to kind of wrap up really fast, let's see if I can do this in 30 seconds. I'm loving getting back into the game. The only real thing I can report about my experience so far is that I'm in this new area called the Forbidden Woods, and it takes the best concepts of everything I've seen throughout the game and really uses them. So the cool thing about it is that, like you said, it is like there are narrow corridors and stuff like that. But everything, it's not blocked off like... It's not blocked off in the sense that, like, Metroid is, right? Like, I was kind of saying this before. I never got to finish the point, though. Like, it's just about where you can get to and what shortcut you can unlock to get back to the checkpoint. That's the thing. It's all about unlocking shortcuts to get back to, like, the save area, more or less. Like, or, like, the spawn point. So if you can figure that out, it's all about player ability. But there's a lot of things along the way. Like, so, for instance, this one area, there's a bunch of traps. Like, you'll see a bunch of enemies, you'll charge at them, and then, like, it'll be like a wood floor, and you'll get thrown down into this pit. There'll be, like, weird tar monsters in the pit you have to fight off. Like, it's kind of like a haunted house almost in that sense. Like, it's like something Fujibayashi-san would have made back during his past life.
Good callback.
You know me, I'm great with those callbacks. It's just a lot of fun, and again, it's kind of like every area is very crafted, you know? It's like how there's certain areas, it's kind of like the survival island in Breath of the Wild, to relate it back. Like, there's this level of challenge to it, and there's this level of anytime you think you have a leg up, the game has something waiting around the corner. And sometimes if you're really good, you can get past it. And that's good on you. The game doesn't, like, you know, punish you for... It's open enough that, like, if you subvert its expectations, the game can account for it, you know? But at the same time, it's also very clever with how much... Even if you think you're a smart player, like, you can fall into that trap and do that sort of thing. And I just really appreciate that type of design, and I'm loving being back into the game again. It's currently going to be my main game. Obviously, still plugging away through Zelda and playing Metroid, and that's my life right now.
And don't worry about getting it back to Aaron.
No, I'll take another 2 years if I have to.
Please.
All right, so Ben, what have you been playing?
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but I've been playing Zelda.
Shocking.
So shocking. As shocking as a shock arrow. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, mister. No. But for real, the DLC dropped, which I'm pretty happy with. And I know I'm always the worst barometer for this because I always say I love everything in terms of, like, Zelda, but the price for the DLC is $20, and I already feel like I've gotten that amount out of it, like, through the first half. Like, this is the first half of the season pass, basically. It's supposed to be the lesser half of the season pass as well. Like, we don't know what for sure the second pack is going to be, but it's supposed to be more substantial. And this one, I'm already sold. Like, I've already gotten my worth out of it. So what you get is like 9 or so clothing items that do different cool things, one of which is very, very fucking useful and has made my life 100 times better. And that is the Korok mask. And if you know about Breath of the Wild, you know about Korok seeds. And if you know about Korok seeds, you know about pain and suffering.
Trying to look around the world, literally every single rock.
You wear the mask, and it does a little, like, ooh, so when you're next to one.
So if you're looking at a rock and you're like, is there a Korok seed? You put the mask on.
Well, I just wear the mask indefinitely.
Oh,
now.
shit.
Because, like,
what's the armor rating on it? Like, do you have?
It's one. It's one. So it's low defense, okay. But everything else I have is upgraded. So I just wear my best shirt and pants. Is
it not upgradable on its own?
It's everything from the DLC is non-upgradable.
I kind of like that,
which
though.
I appreciate because I just finished upgrading everything, and I did not want to farm star fragments anymore.
Yeah, I also appreciate for the game's balance. It makes sense that you can't just pay to get, like.
And some of them are one. Like, one being the defense.
Mm-hmm.
The highest defense is the champion's tunic. Most of the high ones are 28. The Korok mask, I want to say it should have been an item in the game to begin with. But it's kind of like the Wind Waker HD Swift sale, where you use it and you're like, why didn't they think of this the first time? And that has a reason. I guess they couldn't load, the game didn't load fast enough for you to go that fast in the water. But it's just, it feels similar to me in that it really benefits the game to a degree where it doesn't feel like a bonus. It feels like an item that belongs there.
So are you upset that you had to pay extra for it then, or?
No, I mean, it comes in the pack with everything. It's not like I paid $1 for the mask. It totally fits in with the bundle. Yeah. I'm just saying that particular item feels crucial to the gameplay to me.
And I will say, if I could, just on that one particular item, and just for the record, you told me about you actually were the one who notified me that this had dropped, and the craziness post E3 of me working my other 2 jobs and then doing this on Metroid, it had kind of fallen through the cracks for me, but I didn't get a chance to buy it yet, basically is what I'm saying. But even as someone who just has seen the concept in that video from E3 and in sitting here talking about it with you, like, I understand why they didn't include it in the base game. Like, it does kind of, I don't want to say it breaks the balance, but like, it does make sense that this is a paid edition and not something that would be in the base game.
I mean, I also appreciate the time it took and the effort I put into finding all the Korok seeds before that. And, like, my goal is to 100%. And before I downloaded the DLC, I was at, like, 520 out of 900. And just in the few days since I got it, I'm at, like, 100 more. So it's streamlining it for me. Like, I'm not going as insane as I do with this type of thing, and I'm not afraid to go insane looking for collectibles in a video game. But yeah, it's definitely helping me with my mental health. And no, it's cool because, like,
what is your hour count now in Zelda, if I may ask?
I don't even want to say anymore. My strategy at this point, since I've done everything else in the game, I would just put, like, a marker on the map, like, just anywhere randomly, as far away from myself as possible, and then I just run in a straight line to the marker.
And you just see, like, if it dingles on the way.
Well, that's what I was doing before this, I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
That was my strategy. It was working kind of well, and I would, I'd have to look around a lot more. But this time it's like, now it's just, like you said, I just needed to hear it dingle. And I've actually found a couple of the puzzles where I'm like, if I didn't have the mask, I don't know if I would have ever found this. Like, there's been one where, I won't spoil it because it's actually a really good puzzle, but it actually took me a minute to figure it out, even knowing that there was one there. So this thing is going off. It's like, there's a seed, and none of the clues are there. Like, usually there's a rock, there's a patch of leaves, there's like an acorn, like, all the things, but there's none of that. And I'm just like, what could this be? I'm climbing every tree in the surroundings. And I finally figured out I was really clever, but I don't think I would have gotten it. Like, I feel like that could have been the one where, like, I got, like, 899, and I'm like, I don't know. So, suffice to say, I'm glad that this is an item that they gave me. Yeah, so I would have paid $20 for the Korok mask. And you also get an entire gameplay mode also.
You do.
So for me, the value's there.
So did you play the Trial of the Sword at all? Or
I did. You start out with no items whatsoever. But you do have all your heart containers and all your stamina. So if you're fully upgraded, you do have an advantage. Like, maybe if you're playing the game, you want to fully, like, you won't have any items, but you will have your health. And that helped a lot. So it's a really cool survival mode, and I only died once in the middle of it. There's 3 sections of it. Each section upgrades the Master Sword 10 attack power up to 60 permanently. Yeah,
that's cool that it's broken up too, that, like, you can do one leg of it and get 10, and if you're tired, go back, like, at a different time for, like, the next 10.
Once you're in one, you can't save. Like, it's one of those things, you die, you have to start from the beginning. But it's not, I think it's like 40 some odd levels, 45 maybe. 45, a few of them are rest areas.
Is that 45 per each area?
No, 45 total.
Okay.
It added a lot to a lot of the... You know what? I'm a G at this game, honestly.
Ooh.
But...
you do the most hours out of everyone I know, so I'm not even going to try to take you a peg down and like claim that that's a cocky statement or anything.
Yeah, I mean, come at me right now. But
I couldn't even with my stats right now. I haven't even broken 3 digits with those fucking Korok seeds. If I could jump in for a second and ask you something,
please.
Back on the subject of the Korok real fast. I do want to keep talking about the Trial of the Sword though, but it's interesting to me that you say that about particularly like struggling and being like, wait, I didn't even realize that was a Korok puzzle and stuff, because I have noticed there's obviously some in the game that are very well hidden, but it seems like the game actually does a really commendable job of at least making a lot of them very clear in the environment. Like there's like a barrel up there, or like you see like a thing at the bottom, or like
a lot of them will be obvious puzzles.
Yes.
It's more about finding them.
Yes.
A few of them are you're not sure that it's a puzzle, and it's more about solving them.
I think with 900 in the world, like I would think that it does ratchet up to this point that it gets crazy to find them.
Yeah.
And that's the story I've heard from you. That's the story I've heard from Dan, who are farther down the road. Again, Korok seeds puzzle are maybe like the one thing I've incentivized the least. Like if I'm in the world, like I turn over every rock, but like I've never really played the game with the intent to just find them. Like I've played the game just with the intent of I'm going to find shrines and towers. I played the game with the intent of I'm going to, go find memories. I've never really just been like I'm going to look for Korok seeds for 2 hours.
Uh-huh.
I would like to do that, though. I think that's the next challenge.
I mean, I haven't gotten to the point of just looking for Korok seeds until recently. Like, it's throughout my playtime, it's been a, like, secondary thing in the back of my mind. It's a tough, it's a living.
Oh, we're not there yet, but we're plugging towards it, Benny. Getting back on subject to the trials, though, it sounds really cool. I want to jump into the whole thing. What about the Path of the Hero? That's like the one other really cool thing.
Oh, yeah. I turned it on. I was like, oh, my God.
I know you sent me a picture, and it was insane.
I sent you a picture of mine. I was like surprised I was that even across the map. And it's interesting to look at all the little places you've been and haven't been. Also, though, it's only the past 200 hours of gameplay. And that's...
The past 200 hours is
That's a lot less than I've played. So... continuously now forever as I go, it's always erasing the furthest path that I've created.
Wow. I'm like just about to break 200 by the time I'm done with this game too. That's insane.
So yeah, you should actually get the DLC because I'd be interested to see like your path from the actual beginning of the game to where you are, because I wasn't able to do that. That's
true. I should definitely jump on it now so I can get that stuff. What about the gold level enemies? Have you fought any yet?
No, actually, that was one thing where I was slightly disappointed, but now thinking about it, I understand the reasoning. The gold level enemies are only in master mode, which is just the hard mode of the game. And that is a completely different save file.
So you'd have to start a new game.
Yeah, you can't convert your save file.
So this opens up the ability to have 2 different save games.
So you technically now can have 2 save games on one file.
Which before you had to switch and make a new profile, basically.
You had to have a profile per each, yeah. So it's different as one is hard mode and one is normal mode, but it still has that. And for me, that's good because if I'm eventually going to start another game, and now I'd rather that be hard mode, because the way I play Zelda games is the first time through, I like to 100% find everything, get everything, and then when I go in again, I like if there is a hard mode, I'll play it, or I'll make the hard mode for myself, as in not finding any hard pieces, not taking any hard containers, making it a hard mode,
That's the interesting thing about it, is that there's already so much challenge in the base game, and if there's so much flexibility in the base game to make it a harder experience if you try. Like, if you turn off all the hero abilities that you get, or the champion's gifts that you get, if you play in pro mode too, which means you don't have any HUD. Like, there's so many ways to make it a harder experience, on top of the fact that it's already like you said, just don't get any upgrades. Like, there's people who have done entire playthroughs without getting any upgrades.
And that plus the new hard mode, plus my goal is to like almost do a speed run where I'm not timing myself, but I just want to do as little as possible to get to Ganon.
I like, it's so interesting too, just to think about it. Like, there's already so much room for replayability in this game, but this DLC, just by having that hard mode, does the best thing that a DLC can do, which is extend the life of the game extensively, just by adding that hard mode, and even just the ability to be like, I'd love to do a hard pro mode playthrough where you do hard mode and you have like the pro mode enabled too on it. So like you have no HUD. That's like easily another 200 hours at minimum in the game if you really want to be like an Uber collector. Minimum. Well, at least another, at least another 100 if like you say that you don't go crazy with the Korok seeds and like the collecting this time.
There's also an end game breaking glitch that I want to try that I found through Egg Busters. Shout out to Austin from Egg Busters.
Austin always giving us the good.
And it seems to destroy your save file though, so I'm not going to do it on my 100% file. But it'd be cool to
make an account to try it.
Well, I was going to say hard mode. Do it on the hard mode.
I would like to have a hard mode file that I kept, but I would love to make a file and just plow through like the champions and then go to the end game. Is it in Hyrule Castle?
I won't say anything about it, but there's a pretty awesome end game glitch that lets you fuck with the game.
I will have to check that out once I beat the game.
That I hope they don't patch, because it really, for me, that kind of thing adds to a game.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to do it by accident, so it's not like it's really going to break your game unless you try or know about it.
You'd have to be going out of your way to make this happen.
Yeah,
basically.
And it's just such a cool thing. It's like, for me, it's like a feature. I love that.
All right, well, there we go on that. There was a couple things that we wanted to talk about. There was one thing in particular we wanted to talk about before we move over to Game Club. Now, Ben, I know earlier today your brother and your nephew were over here, right? And you were having a pretty interesting experience while they were over.
Yeah, I just thought I'd touch on this because I just experienced it, and my brother Andy he got a Raspberry Pi for emulating classic games, and he's been having some trouble with the lag. And he's not sure or at this point he might be sure that it's an amalgamation of all these things, but there's slight lag from his TV, there's slight lag from the emulation, and there's slight lag from his third-party controller. That all added together adds up to playing something as pixel perfect as Super Mario Bros. It's not a great experience, especially for him who bleeds that game, Super Mario World, Mario 3.
The whole Farrell family they live and die by the Mario games.
Every pixel, if you're doing a run and jump off a platform and that shit doesn't land, something's up.
And it's not because of something it's something that you can't say is up to human error. That's an issue, particularly in Super Mario.
And he came over today and he was like, turn on your NES Classic, and we put on Mario Bros. 3, which actually I took off Mario World. I forget why, but I just need extra space. But as you know, I emulate. I hacked my NES Classic with a bunch of emulators, but we ended up trying Mario 3 and. I wasn't even aware of it. Like, I guess I was just used to it. I wasn't paying attention as much, but there's this slight lag, and he was like, this is the test is to do a running jump off a platform and jump at the last second. So if there's zero lag, you're going to jump off at the last second because you're a pro. But if there is lag, you're going to jump off at the last second, but you're going to fall off and not do a jump because you just ran off the edge because there's lag.
And you tested it too. You have a copy, an NES copy, and an NES.
We put on my other TV, which supposedly the TV, I'm not sure how those are part of it or not, but we use the original hardware and NES and Mario 3 cartridge.
And it's a CRT that you have.
It's not a CRT, but I think it's some type of plasma. I'm not sure. It's like one of those in between. It's like before it became widescreen was prevalent, but it's not a CRT.
It's like a full screen plasma screen.
It's yeah. So I'm pretty sure those are pretty good with lag though, and all the original hardware, and it was amazing. We had them on both at the same time. We had the NES Classic emulating on my widescreen, and right next to it we had the full screen plasma on the original hardware.
Interesting.
And we were doing the same test, jumping at the last second off a platform, and it just felt brilliant how zero lag there was
on the NES version.
On the NES original,
but not so much on the classic version.
And on the NES Classic, which we realized Mario 3 obviously is part of the 30 games in one, regardless of my hacking. It's pretty close to having no lag. Because that's, it's the actual emulation Nintendo offers through the system.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, because I don't know if this is something we ever discussed in the past. So, what you're saying is that the original 30 games you were able to keep them on there. You didn't have to like re-download them.
Those are not re-emulated, re-download. Those were literally just kept as is.
So that's actually what comes with the NES Classic.
So you play any of the 30 games that come on the system, those are the actual ones that came on the system.
Okay. Do you think if in any way, shape, or form the fact that you did hack it, though, still like maybe affected it?
No, I don't think so. Because, I mean, maybe. Because I don't know the actual inner workings of the entire process of what I did to it, but I'm fairly... Like, I didn't put a ROM of Mario 3 on my system. Like, that is the ROM that came on the system, so... I'm fairly safe in assuming that is the Nintendo-given one.
That's so interesting, though. I mean, I guess it's unavoidable to a certain degree when it's running off of a software emulation, but... And I'm sure Nintendo did their best to make it as close as possible, but you even notice there just is a difference there.
Yeah, and it's so minute. Like we also said, like once you get used to it, it's probably not as noticeable, but
yeah,
just knowing the game so well and comparing it right next to each other, it was completely noticeable. I definitely would say to think twice about emulation.
Wow.
In terms of that.
That is food for thought. It makes me pause before I want to do that now. But potentially, if the games on the system are already going to be that way, it's almost like, what can you do about it? Was your brother... One question I do want to ask you, though, before we move on to Game Club. Was your brother saying that this was this one-to-one with the experience your brother was having? Or is this version more stable, would you say? Less laggy?
I think... I haven't tried his at home, but I think his was more laggy. Because he noticed it without comparing to anything. So
yours was, and you're a big enough Mario player that you would notice if it was a big difference.
Yeah,
like, it
so
must be
I think the minute difference I hadn't even noticed without comparing. So and his Raspberry Pi venture wasn't suitable to his liking.
I mean, I'm sure with certain calibrations, like there's always a way around it. There's a hack. There's something. This is the nice thing about emulation.
The experimentation is fun as well, and that's part of it.
Anyway, we just thought this would be an interesting thing to bring up for you guys because we talk a lot about emulation on here and. We've never really brought up the idea that there are drawbacks to it. I mean, I don't think we've ever said it's a perfect thing, and that we've never necessarily encouraged or said you guys should do it. We've just kind of talked about our experiences, but
well, at least make sure your TV is set to game mode. Lag is the worst in general.
It is, and I think it's important that we bring this up as a counterpoint to say, hey, look, there are things. Be aware of this, and it's an interesting point too for anyone who's thinking about doing what I'm doing and. Maybe using their SNES Classic as a way to have a bunch of different games on there. I mean, again, we've talked about it too. The Conker's Bad Fur Day didn't run that well. The N64 emulation, like there are drawbacks. Just be careful and don't break any systems.
Break all the systems.
Oh goodness! Wow. On that note,
I thought that was a good tidbit. Maybe something to think about, something to ponder.
It was good. Thank you for
experience in my life with gaming.
Ben, thank you for sharing as always. On the subject of breaking things and having to put them back together, though, we have a game to talk about. We have a game club to talk about, Mister. So,
first official Metroid Prime game club.
Here we go. All right. So yes, it's been about 2 to 3 weeks in the making. We played through this section ahead of time, so we could kind of have more time to process it and digest. We've talked about it pretty extensively off air, but I'm happy to finally get a chance to kind of discuss Metroid Prime with you on air, Ben. And
it's dope.
It's awesome. I have to say, I think we're both in general enjoying it.
You liking it?
I'm liking it too. I was still struggling a little bit with that control stuff. I was kind of mentioning this last week. Ben is playing it. He's playing the Wii version. Technically, he's playing it on Wii U, but he's playing the Wii U port of the Metroid Prime trilogy release, which was, all Wiimote controls. So I've heard from many people that's the preferred way to play the games. Yeah. It's the best control scheme.
It feels really smooth. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I don't mind it. I mean, first off, I love the GameCube controller. I've said many times on and off air that it.
But is it tank controls for you? Can you strafe?
I kind of explained this. You have to hold down a button to strafe. And if not, it's literally
you can finagle it. Like it's not fully tank controls.
It's not fully tank controls, but like it's not like I'm also
I can
spoiled.
freely aim with the IR sensor
I know.
and move separately all at the same time.
I was looking at footage of Arlo did a video about Metroid Prime, and he used all footage from the Metroid Prime trilogy.
It feels great. Like literally doing platforming, I'm using the Wiimote to platform basically because I can look separately from my jump.
Oh god, the
and
platform.
turn as I do it, and I can shoot as I land the jump.
I mean, I wanted to play the GameCube version. I wanted to play the original version. That was my choice. And I've been meaning to get a GameCube controller for years now, so... And at the very least, this gives me the opportunity to do what I've always wanted to do, which is use my Wii as a vehicle to catch up on all the GameCube games I missed.
It's a fairly cheap game, honestly. You paid me is more for the controller.
No, you gave me a great deal on the... You gave me a memory stick, a controller, and the game itself, and in the game itself for $30, something like that, right?
$30, yeah.
Which, I mean, again, that's better than you can find. I think it's like you could pay $100 online for like an OG copy of that game.
100?
Dude, that game is rare. Actually, it's pretty fucking rare.
No, Metroid Prime,
the original. Maybe I think
100. Did you say 100?
I'm pretty sure I've seen 100
for an open copy of Metroid Prime.
I'm not maybe a closed. Maybe I'm thinking closed factory seal. I might be thinking closed factory sealed.
Factory sealed, bro.
I
ain't selling you $100 game for $15.
Well, I mean, you already sold it to me, so what are you gonna do about it?
I'm saying I know what my prices are.
Okay, fair enough. I remember at one point seeing it. Maybe it's more than that. What have you seen it for?
It's online? More than 100, yeah.
What have you seen it online? Or maybe it's less.
It's a $10-15 game, dude.
You've seen it $10-15 online?
Everywhere.
Really? Damn. You still okay? Well, for that plus the controller, you still gave me a pretty good deal. Maybe I'm thinking of something too, but I remember that game being a little bit rarer than maybe. Maybe I'm not thinking. Maybe I'm. You know what? I'm thinking of the.
Know what?
I'm thinking of the trilogy. The trilogy's really.
It's $100 game. I sold you $100.
I might have. I hope you did, but no. I would have.
No, now I'm just playing into it. But
either way,
just
either way, putting that point aside, I might be thinking the original Wii version of Metroid Prime trilogy. I think is hard to find. That might be
that one actually. They might be thinking of that because
that's probably what I'm thinking of.
The physical copy of the Wii
they were limited
trilogy with the steelbook case of it, like that's a rare piece.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm actually thinking of. Anyway, getting back on subject to this game itself, I've been getting now that I'm like we're like what at this point like 5 hours, 3 hours into the game. I mean us. Keeping in mind like us fucking around and stuff like that too, and going a little bit farther than we're talking about today. We're like 3 to 5 hours into the game probably.
I'm like 2.
Are you like 2 hours in? Is that how much you've played?
I think I have a faster pace than you, honestly.
You're probably faster, or maybe I've just played it in such small increments over a long period of time that it feels like it's been longer than it has.
Maybe. I'm actually looking at my... Does yours have a count on it? Or are you just estimating?
I'm just estimating.
Mine has an actual count.
Does the Wii count?
Yeah.
Like how much you play a GameCube game still?
Well, no, the trilogy counts it. Within the game, it tells you.
Yeah, I don't know if my version has a counter, but I'll look for that. Anyway,
so to start off...
Just to start it off and talk about
tutorial,
the actual game.
Let me say, the tutorial... Oh my god, this game has amazing game level design, progression. That opening little box that you're in with your ship, and it's just like, okay, the first room, you learn all the controls.
Oh yeah.
Or personally, I did, and that's like, it's like Mario 1-1, you know. You're just in there, you're pressing all the buttons, you're doing what a gamer would do, looking at stuff, shooting at it, and the first puzzle is to just shoot these 4 red buttons.
It's those 4 red buttons, and it just teaches you how to use the lock-on function. Funny too, because I'm sure it probably functions differently for you. I know for me on the GameCube, part of that section is to teach you that you can press the right trigger to look up and down, like, but you can just do that with like the Wiimote in your version, right? Yeah, you have free movement up and down too, which is the other thing that I don't like. You have to aim up or down. You literally have to stop, be stationary, and like go up or down, and like have no control over your movement.
And then soon after that, they teach you about the scanning.
Yes, which I love that mechanic.
I love that mechanic too, but sometimes it bogs me down just because in my last playthrough, I've kind of let go of it a bit, but it's one of those things where it's like, I want to be scanning everything, so you end up just playing the game in scan mode, and it's a bit of a detraction, like an Arkham Isn't there a similar
Yeah,
view,
detective mode.
detective mode? Yeah,
well, it's
or
different though.
also in Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider.
The new Tomb Raider mode does the new Tomb Raider rather does have a mode like that. I think
where you end up, it's like you get benefited from being in that view mode.
So you almost just want to play the whole game that way.
Yeah, and you just end up being in it so long, and it detracts from the experience because you're just in this weird
scanning mode that
yeah,
it doesn't let you appreciate the art direction quite
exactly.
as much.
Yeah, it's like it has all these lines over it and stuff, but it's like for gameplay reasons you want it.
Yeah, I would argue it's a little bit. I don't know. Again, I don't know. Maybe because of the different versions, it's different. But there is like a reason to get out of it because you are more limited than like detective mode in Arkham. You can do pretty much anything in the game from that mode, which is downfall of that mode and why. In later games in the series, they kind of made some of the features of detective mode just part of the native game, so you would rely on it a little bit less. They never really actually fixed that problem 100% in that series, though. Like, I feel like up to the end, like, detective mode was, like, very beneficial.
Yeah.
But the game was so pretty when it came out on PlayStation 4 and Xbox. I feel like people just maybe that was it. Maybe that was the solution. Just make the game so pretty that people don't want to view it in the weird X-ray mode.
True. And in Metroid, if you start shooting, it automatically brings you out of it.
Yes, exactly.
It's not that obtrusive, but I just thought that personally I was going into it a lot.
Yes. Getting back on point, that's the point I'm actually trying to make, is that there is a reason to get out of it because you can't just do anything. Like, mechanically, you are limited, and for the purpose of defending yourself, for the purpose of getting a better view of the world and having situational awareness, it's in your best interest to stay out of the scanning mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certain points, though,
it's beneficial to be in it.
Well, they make you be in it. Like certain puzzles are solved through scanning.
Yes, yeah. Like anytime you have to activate an elevator, it's literally scan it, then step into the hologram, and there you go. Even with some of my gripes about the controls, first off, for the kind of game it is, I kind of appreciate it because it does make me think about it less as a first-person shooter and more as like an adventure game. Because it is like a Metroid game. This is actually my first Metroid game. I've never played a Metroid game before. I was just realizing that.
Yeah, I played like some of the original, some of Super, and some of Corruption, but never like delved fully into any.
Me either. I definitely want to. I was already thinking about it. I think I might pick up a 2DS or a 3DS so I can play Samus Returns when it comes out now. Because I would like to try a 2D Metroid to act as a counterweight to this, but I'm loving the experience.
I kept finding that may just be me and being so well versed in video games that and this is how this game works, where there's always a way to go that you're not supposed to go yet because you need a new item.
Yeah.
And I would always go that way first because I'm exploring and I'm finding the more interesting secret way, and then I get to a breaking point where I'm like, I'm not actually supposed to go this way yet.
You were really feeling yourself tonight. You were on one for yourself tonight, man. I'm not hating.
Non-humble brag hashtag brag
hashtag brag boy.
But no, I mean I'm sure there's many gamers that do the same thing where
I know. I'm just
go the wrong way first.
Yes.
And a lot of games it's beneficial, but in Metroid it seems that that's usually where you need to go secondary, where you get after you get the item.
Well, this kind of goes back to what we were saying before when we were talking about Bloodborne. I do that a lot in Bloodborne. I go the wrong way first, but it's beneficial because you could open up a shortcut, you could find something new, you could maybe even skip an area or find an optional area. A game like this, like, you're very much so just, you hit a wall. Like, sometimes literally you just hit up against a wall.
And it's not even that bad, though, because then it's like, it's a prompt for the next item you need, and it's like, okay, now I know what to do.
And that's the thing about it, is that it's weird, because almost in some ways, like, the structure of it was reminding me of, like, an old school Zelda game, because, like, it feels almost like there's dungeons, and, like, there are bosses and mini-bosses, but it's not segmented in the way a Zelda game is. It is, in classic Metroid fashion, just one big overworld that you travel through and find things in. There's no sort of, like,
yeah, it's more like one big overworld.
Exactly. There's no, like, hub and then you go into, like, a dungeon. It's just, like, the entire thing is one big dungeon, more or less.
Also, one thing that I really enjoyed was in the tutorial area and before you actually land on the main planet, you have all your items. You're playing with the missiles. You're playing with the controls. You got the morph ball, the bombs, everything. You got everything. And then immediately you get stripped of it all. And I think I'm not totally sure. I'm not well versed in Metroid, but I think that's a Metroid trope.
That's a classic Metroid trope.
So yeah, they show you everything, they let you play with it, and then they strip you of everything.
Although I do think there's a couple things, even if you look at your like equipment in that section, I think you don't even necessarily have everything. Like I think there's one or two things.
Yeah, but you still get stripped.
Yeah, you still get stripped.
Sure.
But it's interesting that like that's not even everything, but like you get to see like a taste. You get a taste more or less, which is classic Metroid, like you said.
Yeah.
Although I like the idea that there's still a couple things that are hidden, like you don't know everything that's coming. But pretty much immediately, so what happens is you're in that tutorial area, which is the space pirate ship. Space pirates are obviously a mainstay enemy in the series. And you basically go to the ship. It's interesting because it's like a ruined. You basically hit it after something terrible has happened. Like there's like this ruined ship. There's these creatures getting out and about, and
you get a glimpse of Ridley.
You get a glimpse of Ridley. You fight the first boss, which is kind of more like of a tutorial boss. Remember the thing with the rotating shields and all that, like the big bug thing.
Yeah, that one gave me a little bit of trouble before I learned how to do the lock on.
It's a little tough, but it's also an interesting case study because every boss and mini boss in the game follows a similar formula of. Again, it's kind of almost... It's hard because, again, I keep wanting to use Zelda terminology to describe it, but I don't know if these things are classically Zelda or classically Metroid because those series also have, like, a lot of overlap in some of these concepts that I feel like people don't really talk about as much because, again, Zelda's way more of a known series than Metroid is in the canon Nintendo, but either way, like, you know, like, it does teach you that, like, you have to be thinking about what the specific strategy is, and you can't just be firing freely. Like, again, it kind of goes in with that whole idea of this is an adventure game. This is a first-person adventure game more than it is like a shooter. Like, you can't just fire blindly. Like, you have to pay attention to the gaps and the holes and how to use things, and particularly then because you still have the charge attack in some of these abilities. It's a good way to use all these abilities and get a sense of them before you lose them and have to instead of having to learn it when you get them later in the game, you're already acquainted with them.
Yeah, and most of the first area that we played was getting back what you just lost, like the morph ball bomb and the heat resistant suit.
Even
and
the morph
missiles.
ball itself.
The missiles was the main one, and the morph ball itself.
The morph ball itself, yeah.
So yeah, there's a few mini bosses, and those give you back most of your items.
Yeah. So backing up for a second and just kind of walking through it, like Ben said, you get stripped of your stuff. You catch a glimpse of Ridley. You have to escape it, which I really like that section. That was actually very intense, like the countdown.
Oh yeah, true. That escape was pretty great.
I think a part of it was because, again, like I had trouble with the controls, but I actually normally those sections I find kind of tiresome, a little cliched. I actually found it very.
I wasn't
intense.
worried at all. Actually, I know I'm not going to run out of time, so I was just chilling through it.
I kind of broached this subject to you last week. Real fast, how do you think that's going to change when the 4 comes out on the Switch? And do you think it's going to have the motion controls of Corruption in the trilogy as an option at least? Or do you think it's going to be... I think they're definitely going to go dual stick with it, you know? There's no way they're going to go back to that control scheme in 20.
Yeah, it's got to be dual stick. I'm not sure.
I would like if they had the... Because I've heard the pointer controls are awesome. I would love if they had that as an option at least, kind of like ARMS does.
Maybe.
Hopefully. Getting back on subject though, so after that section, like you said, you lose all your stuff, and then you crash land on Phazon 4? Talon 4?
Talon 4.
Talon 4. Why do I keep... No, Phazon's the fucking thing. That's the MacGuffin thing. Remember we were talking about that before? Talon 4, and like you said, you start getting all your stuff back. So the first thing you get back is your rockets. Then from there you get the morph ball.
Yeah, you go through the Chozo ruins.
The Chozo ruins. You have to go to different areas.
The rocket is of course, morph ball is most utilitarian, but the rocket, because it opens doors. The rocket is the most efficient thing in terms of opening barriers.
And that goes back to what we were saying before with how there is a purpose and a function to everything you find, and it ties into that. Like you said, there's literally doors that are hidden behind the rocket, which weren't even present on the space pirate level. Which goes to show how much that they kind of keep introducing new mechanics into the traversal in the game. But that's probably the most functional one. But Morph Ball too, because there's certain areas you can't get into. Those are probably the two biggest ones. Yeah. And you also get a piece of armor back.
Yeah, and that's from the main boss, right?
Yes.
You get the fire suit, which lets you into the Magmore Cavern.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think of the main boss?
I mean, I didn't struggle with it quite as much as the tutorial boss. I felt like by that point I had a pretty good handle on the game's controls and mechanics. I'm not going to say it was a walk in the park, but the mini boss, the flying things, that for me was actually more of a struggle
Really?
because I had to twirl around on the control stick. The Magmore Caverns boss was not as big of a challenge, but I still died a couple times. It was a little frustrating. How was your experience, Mr. Wee?
His name was Flagron.
Flagron.
I think. Yeah, I think I had some trouble. I did it in one go. I didn't die, but I really enjoyed the conceit of the boss, which was making the weird panels, shooting the panels in the red spot, and then morph balling into the underbelly of the worm guy, and once I realized the conceit, it was fairly simple, but I still had trouble doing it. Like, how did that work for you? Like targeting the panels.
The one nice thing I will say is, well, it's a little frustrating because he moves around a bit. Like, were you like losing like the lock on like when he moved around a bit? Like,
Well, he would keep knocking them back.
Yeah.
Every time you would put them down, he would knock them back up, and that would give him power.
You're right. Yeah, that got me a couple times. Again, once I kind of just got into the pattern of my whole strategy was just kind of like rocket the shit out of him and like fire as much as I could as fast to try to like shoot it down before like he got the panel up. But I don't know. I struggled a bit. I don't know. I struggled a bit, I'd say. Did you have trouble like with the morph ball section though, or is it like once you got to that like you were fine pretty much? Was it just like that one thing with the panel that kind of messed you up?
Well, it wasn't a section. It was like one after the other.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. But what specifically like about that just like having to do it messed you up, or like what specifically about that like
What messed me up was having to shoot him enough times quick enough before he would knock the panels back up. Because as you know, you would have to. The panels seem to give him energy, and you had to deactivate every panel before you could morph ball into the underground tunnel.
Oh, so just doing
underneath him.
it enough time and getting all of them before he reactivated
Before
them.
he like reactivated them, yeah.
Yeah, that I struggle with that a bit. But again, like I did you use the rockets on that, or did you just like?
I actually didn't use the rockets at all. I just would incessantly press A, and that would seem to knock him out long enough. And then I would morph ball to the next panel.
I morph ball to the panels too. But I found that using the rocket and then like shooting a couple times knocked it out pretty fast. Maybe that's why I didn't struggle with it as much, because I just kind of did that and went from one to the other. And then, but again, it did take me like I guess maybe 2, maybe 3 times to like finish that boss off. So I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't struggle, but.
And usually it's 3. I'm used to like 3 rounds, like a Zelda boss. But this time this boss had 4. Yeah. You had to do the whole thing 4 times.
That threw me for a loop too, because I was expecting after 3 for him to die, and he just like kept coming back. But it establishes that even before in the game, because again, same thing with like the mini boss fly swarm section. There's 4 rounds of that before it ends. Like, so the game does kind of establish that like that's the tone of it, as opposed to like a Zelda game. Like I don't know. Again, I don't. Maybe this is where we're at a disadvantage because neither one of us is super experienced with Metroid games. But is that a standard of that series? 4 rounds as opposed to 3 bosses. Yeah, I don't know how much of this is from the series history and how much of this is being invented by Retro Studios. That'd be an interesting thing for us to look into before we.
It made sense for the boss, though.
It made sense for the boss. Well, I mean, there was literally 4 panels though, so it made sense in that sense too. Again, it is kind of mirrored in the design and things like that. So yeah, it makes enough sense. But it was, I agree. It's coming from a Zelda perspective. It was a little bit to get my head around at first. I don't know though. So we kind of left off there. What do you think of it overall though?
Overall, I'm having fun. Love the level design, like I keep saying. Retro did a great job. I'm liking it. Good reason to turn on my Wii U.
Good reason to buy a GameCube controller and a system. Not a system, but like a game and a memory stick off you.
So for next week, we're going to play up to the next main boss, which is named Thardas.
And he's at the end of what section, Ben?
Should be the Fendrana snow ice area.
The Fendrana snow ice area. Yes. Apologize over not. I think I'm pretty sure we're pronouncing that correctly. So get to the end of the Fendrana section. Face off against the boss. That will be the end of Phase 2 of our Metroid Prime series. Ben, I think we're gonna wait till the end of Episode 3 of Game Club to give our verdict. But how are you leaning so far? Are you still positive?
leaning toward Pluggin? I'm positive.
The controls are giving me a little bit of issues, but I'm still leaning towards it too.
Cool.
It's funny though, because last time you had the control issues. I wonder if that's going to be a recurring back and forth with us.
Maybe.
One
day we'll get the same system going.
We should try that next time. We should both play on the exact same platform.
Yeah.
At least one time. All right. So I think that wraps up this episode of Game Club. Good job, bud.
There you go.
All right, that's our first episode. As you guys know, we launched a Game Club group on Facebook. It's tied to the Key Pluggin Facebook page. We're going to be tweeting that out, promoting that over the next week or so in the lead up to this first episode's drop. You guys are hearing that on Saturday, Sunday over this coming weekend. And now moving forward, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in that group. I think we're going to be trying to share not just outside of these updates. Maybe we'll do some drops there. Like we'll do a little bit like, oh, what do you guys think of this boss or that boss? Certain things to kind of engage you guys along the way. And that'll also be your spot to share with us your experiences. I'd love to start highlighting people's comments and kind of different things about your playthrough. So go to Key Pluggin's Facebook and join our group and share your experiences playing through Metroid Prime. Are you also playing through on GameCube and you hate the controls? Are you a Wii Master Race person like Ben over here? Audience, as always, I'm shaking Ben's hand. Metaphysically, I'm reaching out and shaking everyone's hand. And I hope you have a good week. Ben, where can we find you online?
Follow me at Keep Pluggin LI on Twitter. And Keep Pluggin everywhere else. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
And like we said, YouTube too. We're going to have new video content coming out. You guys can find me on Twitter at Hi There Big Fella. And as the Sandsman on, that's the_Sands_man on Instagram. And it's just Sandsman, that's Sands_man on Snapchat. Ben, you be good, bud.
Keep plugging.
Keep plugging.